Okay, so today's topic is artificial intelligence versus actual intelligence. Now, I'm going to pick up on a few things that I talked about in the last video, and I've actually got a few notes this time, so I can actually pinpoint a few things I want to actually express and talk about. So in the last video, I talked about a fact and two theories. The fact still remains that there's a small percentage of people in power that control the world. Like I said, you can call them the deep state, the elite, cult, whatever. They're actually referred to as the cabal by a lot of people and theories. But basically, I talked about the two theories behind what's going on at the minute, and like the cosmic law of opposites, one's like a dark version of what's going on and one's a light version of what's going on. So I like to believe that we're going from dark into light rather than dark into dark. And the first theory that David Icke was talking about was based on this elite cult using their puppets and powers that be and great minds, thinkers and people with money and technology to take us into a place of artificial intelligence where we're all like robots, avatars, basically download our consciousness and basically end up like computers, so they can have even more control. And that's the dark side of things. But on the light side of things, I talked about this other theory based on a thing called Q, which is to do with Donald Trump and JFK Jr. It's partly to do with JFK. This is my theory, and what I get from it is partly to do with the fact that JFK Jr. has spent all his life looking to revenge his father's death, because his father, JFK, as we all know, was assassinated, and he was ready to expose and take out this elite corruptness, and even put posters up round America saying how he wanted this change to happen and give the power back to the people. And then 7 days after these posters went out was when he was assassinated. Read into that what you think, but whatever you want. But basically, this theory of Q is more of a light theory, whereas the other one's a dark theory and all about artificial intelligence and control. The light theory, what Q is referring to, and the videos about it explain, is that Trump, JFK Jr. and his Q team are wanting to limit artificial intelligence, but will not really limit it to an extent, but use it for what it's supposed to be used for the greater good, and the technologies can be of benefit to humanity rather than the other way around. And he wants people to use their actual intelligence to be able to progress and give the control back to themselves. Not total control, because I'll talk about that in a minute, about how we've got to go through a grey period from dark to light first. But they want to give the power back to the people, like I say, so it's not just this elite cult that has all the power and is feeding their satanic greed, but artificial intelligence, as much as it's useful, it's been created by actual intelligence anyway. So human beings have used their minds to create artificial intelligence. So we can't just totally shift into an AI dimension and lifestyle, because it's just not going to work. The real power is in us as human beings. Now, I've got the definition of artificial intelligence here actually, and it says the development of computer systems able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence or actual intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages, which is also reality, transition between reality. So if that's the case, then AI on the scale that the dark side are talking about is not good for humanity. But if you use it on a if they use it for the light side, the way the light side want to use it, it's gonna be able to be used for things like free energy and all the things that people like Tesla were inventing back in the day that got suppressed because they knew how powerful it was. And apparently Donald Trump's uncle, I think it was, was very good friends with, it was either his uncle or his granddad, was very good friends with Tesla, and on that level of intelligence where he knew about vortex maths and all them type of things that create our reality and time travel and stuff like that. Now let's just move on from them theories for a second and talk about what is intelligence. So intelligence is, well, most people think that intelligence is somebody who's clever, but what you'll find is if you break the word intelligence down, again, I'll always go back to the etymology of words because that's where you'll find the truth. And intelligence isn't about being clever, it's about combining the left and right brain to be a whole. So intel is the intellect, which is the left side of the brain, and all about logic, numbers and analytics. And then gent, so you got intel, and then gents comes from the Latin generate, so to generate means create, so that's the right side of the brain, that's creative. So intelligence doesn't mean that somebody's clever or intellectual, it means that they're using the left and right brain as a whole, so they're not only intellectual but they're creative as well. So to combine the two together you get intelligence, and you'll find most people, again this will go back to their imprinted traits and their pin code, they're either one or the other, they're either intellectual or creative. I know that when I was growing up, and my background was always in like art, so I was very creative when I was growing up. I was into my drawing, into my painting, but also into my sport and stuff like that, which I always see as an art because it's a way of expressing yourself. And I got to a point in my life where I was using my creative flow and skills and talents to get me to certain points in life, whether it be create money or express myself or just have fun and enjoy myself. Then I got to a point, like I say, where I started being interested in maths, logic, philosophy, science, which was more left-brained. And what happened was, I not only did I feel more whole and more intelligent, but I was able to express myself on a deeper level because I was combining the two. And whenever I was doing something creative, I was able to look at it from a logical point of view, and whenever I was doing something more science-based or logical, I was able to look at it from a creative point of view. And this goes back to the law of opposites and finding that balance. Everything's about balance and harmony. That's what the Tao, the famous Tao Te Ching, talks about, and the yin yang philosophy is about. Everything has an opposite. It's why you have left, right, hot, cold, dark, light, and so forth. Now, I was able to progress and create more abundance in my life when I was more whole-brained and I understood myself a bit more, but also both sides of the coin. And I'll talk about my background a bit more probably in other videos, but I was quite lucky growing up because I always had balance. I always had friends that were a certain way from one sort of class, and then I had other friends from a different part of the area I grew up, of a different mentality and class. But that was good because it gave me that balance. And what I'm trying to say is that once we raise our level of intelligence by using both parts of our brain, by expressing ourselves creatively and expressing ourselves intellectually, then not only do we raise our intelligence, but we raise our level of awareness, because you're able to grasp and understand things a lot better. Now, let's just go back to the corona virus. Now, corona actually comes from the Latin word crown or crowning, which is all to do with birth. So birth, the reason why it's related to birth is because when the baby's born, it's usually the head that comes out first, which is the crown, and that's why it's called crowning. So corona, with what's going on at the minute, is actually a metaphor, like I said in the last video, of a rebirth. And it's either going to be a birth of more darkness and artificial intelligence and way of living, which is dark, or it's going to be a rebirth of the light and power back to the people. These elites exposed, people understanding their minds a bit more and having more compassion and living in that 5D reality, that fifth dimensional reality, what I talked about in the last video. Now, virus, so that's corona, rebirth of something, and that's all in conjunction with what's going on planetary at the minute as well, if you look at the moon phases and stuff like that. But anyway, virus, so we talked about corona. Virus is destroying something. So it's like, let's have a look, I've written it down here. So virus is basically, if you look it up in a dictionary, it's about destroying a system. So corona is a rebirth of something, which is why we're going through this change at the minute, to come to the birth of a new existence. But the virus is the destroying of a system. So that is either destroying the system of the dark side and the way things were before to get ready for the rebirth, or destroying the systems that we have in place in order to in order to progress, basically. So that's the metaphor behind coronavirus, because we need to destroy to rebuild. And that again, that goes back to the number 8, which I'll talk about in more depth in a later video as well. I will go a lot more into what the significance of numbers are, because that will allow you access to the power of the language of the universe. So yeah, anyway, going back to intelligence, using your whole brain, not just left or not just right, combining the two and finding that balance, that will allow you to find that flow, because it's like riding the wave. It's like you've got to sort of understand things from different perspectives to be able to ride that wave and stay in flow of life unfolding, basically, because everything's cyclical, it's all cycles. So at some points you'll be on the peak of the wave, and then you'll be at the trough of the wave, and you've just got to stay on that center line no matter what's happening. So it's alright to get excited and overwhelmed and extremely happy about things, but then when the lows come, you've just got to accept them and know that it's part of a cycle, and you'll stay in that, what's known as like the flow central harmony point. Again, I'll do another video a lot more about flow. In fact, the first video I posted on my Instagram a couple of years back talks a bit about that, well, a lot about that, should I say. And once you're in flow, that's when your performance and levels of awareness are totally amplified, and you become like the film Limitless, if you've ever seen that. It seems like an exaggerated version of flow, but I don't think it actually is. I think you can get to that level, and we've all experienced it at some point in our life, and it's usually when we're doing something we're already good at, or we've practiced, and the challenge to what we're doing just outweighs our skill set. So it's like you find that wave again, that balance. Now once you're in flow, that's when, one, you'll be providing a genuine, authentic service to the world, because you'll be using your talents and your skills. 2, you feel amazing, because it's like, again, it's a chemical reaction in your brain craves flow. You feel like sort of like time dissolves, and you're just like so relaxed, and your subconscious takes over to a point where your performance levels are so far superior to what they are when you're trying to think about how you do things. And then thirdly, once you're in flow and you're using your talent to a high level of performance and giving it out, expressing yourself with it, everything you need to progress to a worthy ideal, which is my favourite expression or way of putting what success or being successful is, it's progression towards a worthy ideal. So everything, once you're in flow and you're authentic to yourself, you know your strengths, you know who you are, you're self-aware of your imprinted unconscious traits, behaviours and patterns, and you're doing what you love, expressing yourself with your talent, then like I say, everything you need, the universe provides for you to progress to your goal or your worthy ideal, because it's authentic, it's genuine, it's coming from the heart. And talent actually means, well, it comes from the word talentum, which is Latin again, which actually means sum of money. So rather than having to chase money, which again, the current currency and economic system is going to change anyway. It's all going to be a lot more genuine, probably digital as well, even though it is now. But I mean, it'll be like, well, they reckon it could go cashless, and not only will it be different banking systems, it'll be a thing called I think it's called blockchain. It's a bit like Bitcoin sort of thing. But anyway, I'm not interested in that yet because we're not at that point. But yeah, going back to talentum, it means sum of money. So what happens is, rather than having to chase the money, because money is what, again, even though we all need it to get by, I call them freedom tokens, and being able to, you know, buy food and travel and have fun and go out, do things, find entertainment. That money, you don't have to chase it anymore, because once you're in flow and you're providing that service and you're not doing a job that you hate or isn't suiting your strengths, and you're only doing it for the sake of it to get by, the money just comes, because that flow, like I said, talent is talentum, it means sum of money. So money just comes because people will want your service and will pay your service, and you will get value for your time for providing that service, and it just keeps growing, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And again, everything's timing and cyclical, so as long as you're in alignment with your talent, your skill and your strengths and who you are, as you go through your life cycles and your year cycles, again is another topic but I'll touch on briefly, you progress at certain points and you know when to act upon things because of the energy surrounding that time. So for example, if you have 9-year cycles, so when you're in a year 1, it's all about new beginnings, so that's when you should be starting a new project, career, or some sort of new lifestyle, way of living. And then once you get into the second year of your cycle, it's all about watering that, because you planted the seed in the first year. Again, we're just the same as nature. All you have to do is look at nature and see how things work. I want to go deep into sacred geometry at some point as well in one of my videos. But yeah, year 1 you plant the seed, year 2 you water it so it starts growing. Year 3 is all about intensity and burnout, so that's when you should be putting the work in and really driving that ambition and that work ethic to get to where you need to get to for when you get into a year 4 and you start getting challenges and change, like anything, which we're in now on a global scale, but you have these cycles as an individual as well. So once you get into a 4, you get challenging, testing times and change, like with anything, after them first 3 years. And then the 5th year is all about stress and movement, and if you're out of alignment, it's going to feel like a really tough year. If you're in alignment, then it's a time to grow. It's all about connecting with people, being on the move mentally and physically. And again, if your challenge of what you've put out there totally outweighs your skill set, then you're going to get totally stressed. Whereas if the challenge just outweighs your skill set, then you find that flow, that balance, and again things start to manifest for you, and you start meeting the people you need to meet to progress and get to the level you want to get to. After a year 5, you go into a year 6, which is all about balance and harmony, and finding that balance between your work life and your personal life, your service and your love. So it's all about relationships and finding peace and harmony within what you do. Year 7 is a reflection year. that godlike year, that spiritual year, where you start looking back and reflecting on the last 6 years of a cycle and seeing where you need to tweak things, make changes in terms of how you perceive and process and respond to stuff that have been happening in your life. You can start to learn your lessons and grow even more. Year 8 is all about endings and achievements. It's that build and destroy number, so it's a time when you should be wrapping things up and achieving any goals you set out to achieve, and then also getting rid of anything that doesn't serve you. Year 9 is all about transformation and healing, so it's a year to sort of just take a break and reset, reassess, allow the body and the mind to go back to its pure state and heal itself, because that's what it does. As soon as you leave it alone and don't start thinking about stuff, and don't start overexerting yourself physically, the body will heal itself. And again, this year 9 is a time where you're sort of just getting ready and preparing for the next cycle, which becomes your 1 year the following year. Anyway, so the idea is to understand the energy surrounding these times, which you can find through the formula I use with the pin code stuff, and it helped me massively. Helped me understand why certain things were happening, when I needed to put the work in, when it was time for me to just assess things and so forth, like I've just been talking about. But the key is not only understanding the energy surrounding these cycles and stuff, but also once you see your imprinted traits and behaviour patterns, your strengths and your weaknesses, your negative and positive response to things, then it allows you to jump in the gap of perception and response. Whereas most of the time, without awareness of these cycles and awareness of your strengths and your traits and so forth, we just go on autopilot, and it'll work to a certain extent, and it'll get you to a certain level,